Today we're going to be talking about 3 easy steps you can do to level up your drums. Go from a loop like this into something a little more interesting and spiced up like this. While I'm using the SEQTRAK today, any hardware or DAW will work in the same way. So let's get into it. We're going to start with that simple beat again. I've just got a kick on the 1 and the 3, a snare on the 2 and the 4, and an 8th note pattern, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and on the hi-hat. So the first level is going to be rhythmic variety. And the first thing we're going to do is add some complexity to the kick. The kick is a great place to get started when you want to start adding more groove. Take a listen if we do that, right? Maybe put an 8th note here, a couple 16th notes. Now we have the second bar, so we could do something like this maybe. I like that. I like leaving it a little more simple here. What if we take it off the 3? Oh, hear that space? And 16th notes like this really give that sense of groove. What I'm looking for here though is rhythmic complexity. So I want to add 8th notes. I want to add 16th notes, especially on the kick. I'll show you a couple others we're going to do. Let's also add a little variety to the hi-hat. We're going to put, let's say, a 16th note here. Let's do 2 there. So let me go on the first one. I'm going to just play it straight 8th notes like we had it. And then on the second one, we'll have more of those 16th notes that are breaking it up. And check out the difference between these two. So that's step 1 or level 1. Add some rhythmic complexity, but also rhythmic variability. You don't have to change a ton. You still want some sense of commonality because it is the same drum loop, but it's enough to create variability for the ear. We're thinking ear candy here. It's similar to when we talk about mixing. Once you've got all your ideas, add that ear candy into the mix. We're doing that with the drums here too. All right, now the next step is going to be texture and groove. So let's start by talking about swing. This is super simple. Most, if not all, DAWs and samplers and hardware sequencers have swing. So we're gonna go here and I'm gonna add some swing. Let's put a good bit so we can hear the difference. This will affect the even notes of what you've programmed. So it's gonna be most apparent on those 16th notes in the kick and in the hi-hats, so especially here. Let's really overemphasize the swing. Hear the hi-hat, how it's like stumbling into the odds. Let's go here, and we'll go to page 2. Okay, now let's listen to it without the swing. It's way more robotic, right? But yeah, the swing. So swing is huge. That doesn't require much effort. You can quickly just program it. I think one of the biggest takeaways when I really looked into improving my drum programming and as I got into playing drums live is thinking about the human element. When they play something is not going to play everything at the same velocity exactly on the grid. Everything is going to have variation and imperfections. And the term imperfection has this negative connotation, right? But in small amounts, that's what actually gives music its groove and its feel. And so you really want to think about that. So swing is a quick way to emulate a little bit of that human imperfection and get that groove. But if you want to get even more nuanced, the first thing you want to think about are velocity changes. So if we go to the hi-hat, right? Let's take every and, or the 8th note, and we're going to go and drop the volume. Hear how the drums now are going more unevenly? Loud, quiet, loud, quiet, loud, quiet. So that is one, a drummer on a hi-hat can hit different spots on the hi-hat and that will cause different sounds and different volumes. So that's emulating that to a degree, but it's also emulating the fact that as a drummer hits a hi-hat, each hit is going to be slightly different in volume. Now let's do one, let me show on page 1 where we're going to do full volume on the ands, but we're going to do on the counts, we're going to do a lower velocity. And so we'll have it be different. So hear the difference? So page 1, listen to how the other drums that are hitting at the same time are almost overemphasized and hit harder. And then on the second page, when it's the hi-hat is quieter on these, you'll notice it gives a very different feel. I actually think for this one, we are going to do it where the counts are the lower velocity. I think that has a much better sound to it. But just for reference, let's go back to the original eighth notes. It's just straight on, right? Very constant. It's fine, but it's a little boring. Let's go to this one. Already you can hear that hi-hat has a much better feel to it with that velocity change. All right, the other thing we're gonna do is on the snare, we're gonna do some ghost notes. So I like to think of ghost notes as felt, not heard. It's just giving some movement. If you look at a drummer play on a snare, you'll see that they're often hitting the snare very quietly in between the main hits of a snare. So what I like to do is just think, I typically like to do more 16th notes, and sometimes you want to do like this, and then what we're going to do is all over here, we're going to go so quiet in volume. Let's find volume here. We're going to go really quiet. I'm talking very, very quiet, like almost to the point where you don't hear it, especially in the context of when other instruments are added. You don't want to hear it like at all, pretty much. Here we're going to do a lot, and we're going to do different volumes for each one. So super quiet, pretty quiet, and then a little bit louder right there. And then let's put one here, very quiet, and maybe we'll do one right here. Now listen to this. Hear the little additions of the snare. Let's solo it. Hear that? Let's go to the original without any ghost. All right, and then the other thing we can do once we've done velocity changes and swing, we can also do micro timing. Now that's going to nudge these sounds off the grid a little bit. So it's way less robotic. If we hold down and use the actual drum tracks encoder, you'll see it goes to micro timing. So we're going to move all of them off a little bit. Let's see. So now here's the difference. Again, it's subtle. Let me do a couple where we go really, really off time. Let's go way up here, just so you can hear it. This one is going to basically hit when that hits, or very close. Hear that? It becomes like a ratchet or a substep. So we don't want that, so we're going to go right back here. It doesn't sound like a lot. I didn't do a ton, but it is, if you listen very closely, you'll see those hi-hats when other drums hit are hitting slightly off. We're also going to do that with the snare. I would do it to all of the ghost notes, but for the sake of time, I'm only going to do it to the main snares just a little bit. If you're doing a lot of micro timing adjustments, ground the first kick and the last snare. That's the best way to do it, I find, so that the start is locked on time and the end is locked on time, so it's not drifting too far off. Let's hear that. Last thing we're going to do on this step, as if this wasn't enough for this step, but it seems like a lot because we spent a lot of time making all these micro changes, but really all we're doing is ghost notes, velocity changes, and timing changes, so swing and micro timing adjustments. But the other thing you can do is strengthen or add sublayers. So like I'm going to put a clap on the 4 to strengthen that second snare. That's a terrible clap sound though. Okay, let's hear it. That should work. Yeah, hear that? All right, and then we're going to adjust the micro timing. Let's put it off a little. And then we're going to just drop the volume. And you can mess with pitch. Maybe we'll drop it. The last step or level that I want to talk about today is effects. Adding effects to every layer if possible, but you can even do this to a whole drum track if you're on the SP or something like that. But it does help if you can do individual layers or resample individual layers before you sequence it, like working backwards once you've gotten all these steps. This can do some massive changes. So let's say with this, we can do maybe some distortion on the kick, like that. Yeah, this is more like a tape distortion. That works. On that clap, I can already tell you the thing I want to add, reverb. I want a massive reverb on that clap. So then that clap can be even quieter, just underneath adding something. And on the snare, let's also add reverb. So we can add some tracks to it on top, and you'll see what that does. But the other thing you can do is you can actually add, this is why I mentioned if you have a step sequencer with parameter locks, you could actually do per step effects. So we could say, you know, maybe that kick should have a ton more distortion on step 1, and you could put that and it would add a ton. So let's do that. Hear that? Now the 1 is accented with all that distortion. And the rest still have some distortion, but this one's accented with even more. You could do that with reverbs on your kicks, or not on your kicks. Reverb on kick can work, but typically is a bad idea. But on your snares and things like that, the clap. All right, on the hi-hat, let's hear. What I kind of want to put on is like a delay. Very faint delay, but hear how this one's ping-ponged? Just enough to thicken out those drums, make it almost chorused. But you can hear it echo afterwards. Far more complexity added to the hi-hat without doing anything but adding delay. Then the last thing you can do is switch over to a master effect, and we can find something like, this is master effect for the SEQTRAK. But then you can think if you're on a DAW or on the SP or something like that, your drum bus. So things like saturation, compression, even a little room reverb to emulate being mic'd, like a drummer being mic'd up, that can make a huge difference. So listen to that. Compression's also a really good thing to add. Now this is bumping. It's all glued together. It's all working together. Now let's get something on the synth. Let's get that filter on there. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm getting lost in the sauce. Let's get that recorded. Let me just show you really quickly the before and after. Now, I think the effects are still going to be set, at least for the master. So let's shut off distortion. So this is what we started with. If we add some master distortion, it does sound better just with that step 3, the level 3. Just adding a glue effect can really pump up a sound, but listen to how much more groove there is, so much more feel. It just alters everything. The snare has way more reverb. That little clap underneath accentuates the second hit of every snare. So yeah, the last thing I want to mention, if you want to take this even further, then the best thing to do is resample what you've created, or resample a loop you found, a drum loop, and chop up the drum loops in a sampler so that there's multiple hits per chop. The chops you make will be at a different BPM, so instantly they're already off grid and have some sort of shuffle. If you want to see more about that, check out this video next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.